There's a moment early on in any romantic connection where the groundwork is being laid, and whether you know it or not, the way you show up in those early stages sets the tone for how you'll be treated, how you'll be valued. Now, I want to be very clear. Your intrinsic worth is non-negotiable. You are valuable. You are worthy of love, respect, and admiration. But in the context of dating, there are things we do, behaviors, choices, habits, that kill the perception of that value. And perception matters because a man can't treasure you if he doesn't see what's worth treasuring. So let's get brutally honest about what actually chips away at your value in front of a man. Not what your friends tell you, not what a rom-com shows, but what actually makes a man stop seeing you as someone he wants to pursue, protect, and prioritize. And more importantly, how you can avoid these traps and keep your dignity, your power, and your desirability intact. Let's start with this. One of the biggest value killers in front of a man is overinvesting too soon. This is where you give too much, too fast, without it being earned. You bend your schedule for him. You cancel plans to be available. You start doing thoughtful things, constantly checking in, sending him sweet messages, cooking for him, making time when he hasn't even made a real effort yet. And you think, well, I'm just being kind, I'm showing love. But what you're actually doing is removing the space where his desire grows. Desire needs air, it needs tension, it needs a sense of earning something. And when you go all in on someone who hasn't shown their all in on you, you kill the chase, not in a manipulative way, but in a psychological one. Humans don't value what's handed to them without cost. And it's not about playing hard to get. It's about valuing yourself enough to not overgive to someone who hasn't proven they're emotionally generous in return. If a man hasn't made real effort to see you, to call you, to invest in knowing you, and you're already acting like you're in a relationship, that signals to him that he doesn't have to do much to keep your attention. It removes the healthy pressure that makes someone step up if they want to be with you. Don't confuse effort with affection. Don't confuse being nice with being self-sacrificing. There's a difference between generosity and self-abandonment. And when you overinvest, especially early on, what you're saying is, my time, my energy, my emotional world, all of it is available to you even though I don't know yet if you deserve it. That doesn't make you more lovable. It makes you more forgettable. The second thing that kills your value in front of a man is tolerating bad behavior. This is about what you allow, what you excuse, and what you stay silent on. A guy flakes on plans and you say, "It's okay, I know you're busy." He disappears for 3 days and comes back like nothing happened, and you just roll with it. He makes little jabs, maybe about your appearance, your job, your passions, and you laugh it off because you don't want to seem sensitive. Every time you do this, you're teaching him something dangerous. You're teaching him that he can cross your boundaries without consequence, that your self-worth is up for negotiation, that being close to him is more important to you than being respected by him. And I get it. When you like someone, it's tempting to overlook things. You don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to seem difficult. You think, maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe this is just how dating is now. But the truth is, every time you silence your instinct, every time you accept behavior that goes against your standards, you chip away at your own value. Because men don't fall in love with women who shrink to fit their behavior. They fall in love with women who inspire them to rise. If a man feels he can treat you however he wants and you'll still be there, he loses the very thing that makes you special, your self-respect, and once that's gone, attraction dies. Trust me on that. He may still sleep with you. He may still call you when he's lonely, but he won't choose you, he won't chase you, he won't commit to you, because people don't commit to people they don't respect. The third thing that drains your value in front of a man is needing constant validation, You know this one. It's the need for reassurance, the "do you like me?" energy, the "are we okay?" texts, the underlying anxiety that drives you to overanalyze every message, every pause, every change in tone. And instead of showing up from a grounded place, you start managing the relationship from fear. Fear of losing him, fear of being alone, fear of not being enough. That energy is palpable. And it's unattractive, not because it makes you weak, but because it puts the emotional burden on the other person to convince you that you're lovable. When you need a man to constantly validate your worth, it becomes a job for him, not a joy. It's not his role to hold up your self-esteem. That's your job. Confidence isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about knowing that no matter what happens, you'll be okay, that your value isn't based on how he feels about you this week. When you come from that place of wholeness, of emotional independence, you become magnetic. Not because you're playing games, but because you're not needing someone else to fill your cup. People want to be with someone who's choosing them, not clinging to them. When you need less, you attract more. When you stop seeking validation, you start radiating confidence, and that is irresistible. And finally, one of the most subtle, but powerful, ways you kill your value in front of a man is by losing your identity in the relationship. This one happens so quietly that most people don't even realize it's happening. You meet someone, you start spending time together, and slowly, your world starts shrinking. The things you used to love, your hobbies, your routines, your friendships, they start fading into the background. Your calendar gets filled with his schedule. Your decisions start revolving around what he wants, what he's doing, what he feels. And suddenly, you're no longer the vibrant, full-spectrum woman he was initially drawn to. You've become an accessory to his life, rather than the author of your own. Men fall for women who are connected to themselves, who have passion, purpose, a life that's bigger than just him. That's what creates respect. That's what keeps desire alive, not someone who disappears into the relationship, but someone who brings her own world into it. And I promise you, when you keep your identity, you don't just keep your value. You elevate it, because now he's not just with someone who makes him feel good. He's with someone who inspires him, someone he can admire, someone who challenges him to grow. If you want a man to stay excited about you, never stop being excited about your own life. The moment you abandon that, you stop being a partner and start being a shadow. And no one falls in love with a shadow. Now let's be clear. None of this is about pretending to be perfect. This isn't about faking confidence or playing some rigid, exhausting game. It's about showing up with your whole self, your standards, your boundaries, your passions, your self-respect. And it's about having the strength to walk away when someone doesn't honor that. That's what keeps your value intact, not because you're trying to get the guy, but because you're unwilling to lose yourself to any guy. A man who is truly right for you will never be scared off by your standards. He'll be inspired by them, he'll step up for them, and if he doesn't, that's your clarity, not your failure. You don't want someone who has to be convinced of your worth. You want someone who sees it, who respects it, and who chooses it again and again. Dating isn't a performance. It's a filter, and every time you show up in your power, you filter out the ones who don't deserve it. That's not loss, that's liberation. So ask yourself, am I showing up in a way that demands respect? Am I preserving my mystery, my energy, my life outside of him? Am I making him earn the deeper parts of me? And most importantly, am I treating myself in a way that says, I am valuable, whether you see it or not? Because when you start living like that, something powerful happens. You stop chasing love. You start attracting it. You stop trying to prove yourself. You start being yourself. And the people who are right for you, they don't just notice, they stay. Let's go even deeper with this, because I know some of you might be listening and thinking, okay, I get that these behaviors lower my value, but why do I keep doing them? And that's a powerful question. Because if you don't understand the why, you're going to repeat the cycle. You're going to catch yourself giving too much again. You'll find yourself tolerating things that hurt again. Not because you're weak, but because the impulse to please, to be chosen, to not rock the boat, it's wired into you. A lot of us were never taught how to hold space for our worth. We were taught how to be liked, how to be accommodating, how to avoid conflict. So what happens is we enter into these romantic situations, and suddenly, the moment we feel a spark, we go into performance mode. We think, how can I show him that I'm different, that I'm better than the last woman he dated, that I'm low maintenance, easygoing, sweet, sexy, understanding, whatever he needs me to be. We shape shift, and in doing that, we start erasing the parts of ourselves that might disrupt the fantasy we think he wants. But here's the truth. Real value doesn't come from being easy to love. It comes from being real. From being someone who's not afraid to be fully seen, including the messy parts, including the parts that have standards, that have boundaries, that have needs. That's not weakness, that's authenticity. And if someone can't handle that, if they start to back away the moment you stop bending for them, that tells you everything you need to know. People say, if I speak up, if I hold the line, he might walk away. Yes, he might. And that's exactly why you need to. Because the kind of man who's right for you will never be repelled by your truth. He'll be drawn to it. The wrong man is always going to prefer the version of you that asks for less. The right man, he's inspired by the version of you that asks for more, because it challenges him to be more. So when you find yourself slipping into those patterns, forgiving, over-accommodating, over-apologizing, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this because I want to, or because I think it's the only way to keep him? If it's the second one, you've already given away your power. Let me tell you something else that a lot of people don't realize. Your energy teaches people how to treat you. It's not just what you say, it's what you allow, what you accept in silence, what you explain away, what you stay for even when it hurts. When you act like your time is optional, your heart is a discount, your body is a free trial. Don't be surprised when someone treats you like a temporary experience instead of a permanent investment. Your standards are not walls to keep people out. They're doors that only open for the right ones. And by the way, this isn't just about the big things. It's about the subtle ones, like how you handle a man who takes 3 days to respond to a message. You tell yourself, he's probably busy. I don't want to be needy. So you mirror him, you wait, you double, text, you keep the door open even though he's barely knocking. And in doing that, you're saying you don't need to show up fully. I'll accept crumbs. You think you're being chill. But what you're really being is forgettable. A woman of value doesn't chase. She notices who shows up with energy, who's consistent, who's curious, who's intentional, and she moves toward that. Not out of desperation, but out of alignment, because she knows that anything less than that isn't love, it's self-abandonment. Let's talk about something else that gets glossed over way too often. When you start adjusting your truth to keep someone interested. This happens when you start hiding the things you want because you're scared they'll scare him off. You downplay the fact that you want a relationship. You act like you're fine with casual. You go along with the dynamic, even though your heart is asking for more. Why? Because you don't want to be too much. You don't want to seem demanding. But let's be honest, if someone gets scared off by your truth, they were never going to handle your love anyway. The version of you that hides your desires isn't lovable, it's invisible. And if you keep trying to win someone over with a watered-down version of yourself, all you're going to get is a watered-down relationship. One that leaves you empty, unseen, questioning why he keeps pulling away when you've been so good to him. You've been compliant, you've been easy, but you haven't been you. Your honesty is a filter. The moment you say, "This is what I'm looking for, this is what I want, this is what I value," you're not scaring someone off. You're saving yourself time. You're filtering out the emotionally unavailable men who are never going to give you what you need. You're protecting your time, your energy, your heart, and that's not aggressive, that's smart. We live in a world that tells women to be grateful for attention, to feel lucky when someone shows interest, but I want to flip that completely. The right man should feel lucky to have your attention, not because you're cocky, but because you've done the work, you've grown. You've healed, you've set standards, you've built a life that has meaning, with or without him. That's what makes you high value, not a dress size, not how flirty you are, not how many hoops you're willing to jump through, but how willing you are to stay loyal to yourself, even when it means walking away from someone you really want. And yes, that takes courage. It's not always glamorous. Sometimes you'll walk away and it'll hurt like hell. Sometimes you'll watch a man move on with someone who accepts less, and you'll question if you were wrong to want more. But I promise you, you weren't. Your standards are not the reason someone left. They're the reason the right person will stay. Let's talk about another layer. When you make a man the center of your happiness, it happens gradually. You start to feel like your day is only good if he texts you. Your mood dips when he pulls away. You cancel plans just in case he decides to make time for you, and without realizing it, your emotional state becomes dependent on his actions. That's not love, that's addiction, and it's the fastest way to lose your value, not just in his eyes, but in your own. You want to know what creates true value, emotional self-sufficiency. When you're in a place where you like him, but you don't need him. Where you enjoy talking to him, but your happiness doesn't live and die by his replies. That's when you become powerful. That's when he starts to feel your value, because now you're not chasing a connection. You're choosing it, and that difference changes everything. It's easy to think that being chosen is the goal. That once someone picks you, everything will fall into place. But the truth is, being chosen isn't the prize, being cherished is. And there's a difference. Plenty of people will choose you when it's convenient, when it's easy, when you don't require too much. But only someone who truly values you will rise to meet your needs, will grow to match your depth, will show up even when it's hard. And the only way to attract that kind of love is to embody that kind of self-worth. To be the woman who says, "I'm not afraid to be alone, but I'm terrified of betraying myself just to keep someone around." That's the kind of energy that creates lasting connection, not because you're playing games, but because you're living in your truth. Here's something else no one tells you. High value doesn't mean being invulnerable. It doesn't mean pretending you don't care. It means you're willing to care without losing your center, that you can express affection without overextending, that you can let someone in without handing over the keys to your self-worth. Vulnerability is powerful when it comes from a place of choice, not need. A lot of people confuse being high value with being cold, with keeping walls up. But that's not strength, that's fear. Real strength is being able to open your heart while still protecting your peace, to give without losing, to love without chasing, to say, "I want this, but I don't need it to validate who I am." That's where your true power lies. You don't build your value by trying to get a man to see it. You build it by living like it already exists, because it does. You don't have to earn love by overgiving, overperforming, or overstaying. The love that's right for you won't require you to shrink, to wait, to prove, or to bleed for it. It will recognize you, and when it does, it'll meet you where you are, not drag you down to where it's comfortable. So the next time you're tempted to bend, to explain away, to keep the peace at the expense of your power, remember this: your silence won't save the relationship. Your sacrifice won't create desire, and your self-abandonment will never lead to real love. Let's go even further, because if we're really going to talk about value, about what makes a woman magnetic, unforgettable, respected, we have to stop avoiding the truth about emotional self-leadership. When I talk to women who are constantly being disappointed by men, I see the same theme. They're outsourcing responsibility for their emotions. They're waiting on the guy to create certainty. They're waiting on the guy to say where the relationship is going. They're waiting on the guy to treat them the way they wish to be treated, and in that waiting, they give up their power. You cannot build a life, let alone a relationship, on waiting. Waiting is passive. Waiting keeps you stuck. Waiting is the enemy of self-worth. You want to know how to instantly raise your value in front of a man. Start living your life as if he's a bonus, not the center. Start acting like your joy, your future, your wholeness are already intact. Because they are. No one completes you, no one validates you, and no one gets the right to become your emotional oxygen unless they've proven they know how to handle your heart. And I know that's not what we've been taught. We've been fed a diet of fantasy, stories that say a man will come along and finally make everything make sense, that your loneliness will disappear once you find the one. But the truth is, if you can't be at peace alone, you'll never be at peace with someone else. You'll just drag your insecurity into the relationship and expect the other person to fix it. And when they can't, or worse, when they withdraw, you'll start performing harder, giving more, clinging tighter, trying to win them back. Not because you love them deeply, but because your self-worth got tied to their attention. That's why self-worth isn't a cliche. It's a requirement. It's the very foundation on which everything else is built. And if it's cracked, if your relationship with yourself is fragile, you'll tolerate anything just to avoid being alone again. You'll accept hot and cold behavior. You'll stay in situationships. You'll lie to yourself about what something is just to keep the illusion going. And that illusion is dangerous because it robs you of time, of clarity, of peace. Every minute you spend trying to decode mixed signals, trying to make sense of why someone isn't treating you right, is a minute you could have spent choosing you. Choosing your joy, choosing people who meet you with the same energy. You don't have time to be convincing someone to treat you well. You don't have time to be explaining your worth. If he doesn't see it, bless him and move on. Not with bitterness, but with certainty. Because nothing about your value changes just because someone failed to recognize it. I want to say something that might sound harsh, but you need to hear it. A man not choosing you is not the tragedy. You not choosing you, that's the real loss. Every time you prioritize his potential over your reality, every time you stay because of the chemistry and ignore the lack of commitment, every time you let loneliness be louder than your standards, you lose. Not because you're not lovable, but because you're betting against yourself. Stop doing that. Stop hoping he'll wake up one day and become who you need him to be. Stop replaying every conversation looking for hidden meaning. Stop explaining his behavior to your friends like you're trying to win a court case. If you have to guess where you stand, you're already standing in the wrong place. Men aren't confused. When they want something, they go for it. When they care, they show it. When they're invested, it's obvious. Stop romanticizing mixed signals. Stop confusing emotional unavailability with mystery. He's not deep. He's inconsistent, and inconsistent people are exhausting. They pull you in, then push you away. They give you just enough to keep you hopeful, but never enough to make you feel secure. That's not romance. That's manipulation with a smile. And every time you tolerate that kind of dynamic, your value decreases, not just in his eyes, but in your own. Because deep down, you know you deserve better. You know you want more, but the fear of starting over, of being single again, of losing the connection, even if it's hurting you, keeps you stuck. Here's the truth. It's not the relationship you're afraid of losing. It's the story you told yourself about what it could become. It's the fantasy you built in your head. You're not mourning the man, you're mourning the illusion. And the sooner you let go of that illusion, the sooner you create space for what's real. A high value woman doesn't chase potential. She doesn't cling to almosts. She doesn't confuse temporary passion with permanent effort. She watches actions. She listens to patterns. She pays attention to how she feels, not just when things are good, but when they're quiet. When he's distant, when the high wears off. Because love isn't built in the high, it's built in the follow-through. And if someone's follow-through is weak, you don't beg them to do better. You walk with grace, with dignity, with your head held high, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. You walk not to teach him a lesson, but to teach yourself one, that your value isn't up for discussion. Let's talk about emotional presence. Another silent value killer is being mentally and emotionally consumed by someone who isn't even showing up consistently. You might be going about your day, but mentally you're always half occupied, waiting for a message, checking his social media, analyzing his stories, wondering why he viewed your post but didn't reply to your text. That's a mental prison, and the worst part, you built it yourself. This obsession with being wanted, with being picked, with being enough. It's not love. It's anxiety dressed as romance, and the longer you entertain it, the more it drains you. You stop being present in your own life. Your goals fade, your joy dulls, your connection to you disappears. That's the true cost of low-value behavior. It's not just about how he sees you. It's about how you lose yourself. You want to know what being you really looks like? It looks like taking your attention back, not in anger, but in peace. It looks like waking up and living for you again, drinking your coffee slowly, moving your body, taking calls from people who make you laugh, saying no to energy that confuses you, loving yourself so well that anyone who enters your space has to match that energy or exit quietly. And when you start living like that, when your days are full, your mind is calm, your heart is whole, you become magnetic, not because you're trying to attract anyone, but because you're fully you. That's what real men are drawn to. A woman who knows herself, who backs herself, who doesn't need someone to complete her because she's already arrived. You don't need fixing, you need reminding. You need to remember who you were before you let someone convince you that your worth was conditional. Before you made your value dependent on a text. Before you turned your standards into a sales pitch. So let's remember, every time you say no to crumbs, you say yes to abundance. Every time you walk away from confusion, you walk toward clarity. Every time you choose yourself, you teach the world how to treat you. And if you're still wondering, what if he leaves because I raised my standards? Let him walk. Let him go find someone who will tolerate his inconsistency. You're not available for that anymore. You're building something real. And that starts with the way you show up for you. So here's what I want you to take with you. Your value was never meant to be proven. It was meant to be protected. The moment you start chasing love at the cost of your dignity, the moment you silence your needs just to be chosen, the moment you hold on to someone who's showing you they can't show up, that's the moment you abandon yourself. And no relationship, no man, no connection is worth that price. When you start honoring your standards, not out of pride, but out of self-respect, you send a message to the world that says, this is what love looks like for me. This is the level of presence, effort, and integrity I require. And yes, fewer people may step up, but the right ones will, because real love doesn't make you smaller, it doesn't make you wait, it doesn't confuse you, it sees you, hears you, values you, and meets you where you already are. You don't need to lower yourself to keep someone interested. You don't need to perform to be worthy. You don't need to earn love through struggle. You are already enough, and the man who's right for you. He'll know that, he'll feel that, and he'll rise for it. Not because you begged, but because you believed. Believe in your worth, Act like it's not negotiable, because that's what makes you unforgettable, not just in his eyes, but in your own.